Section 2 of Chapter 19 is going to be talking about calculating depreciation expense. And in this section, we are dealing with straight line depreciation. You'll see that in your text on page 589 as you're reading through the chapter. As we go through, there will be different types, but straight line is the easiest and most straightforward. We've done this before, so it's a little bit of a review. You need three elements when you are dealing with depreciation. You need the original cost, you need the estimated salvage value. Remember that this is an estimate or a guess of what the plant asset is going to be worth when you are done using it. And you need the estimate useful life. And again, this is just a guess, and it's more for the depreciation piece of how long you're going to use it and how long you get to write it off. So to figure depreciation, you take the original cost minus salvage value, you get estimated total depreciation expense. That number, and in this case the $8,000, that is how much we get to write off or expense out over the useful life. So the second step, we take that total depreciation expense, divide it by the useful life, and we get an annual depreciation. So the most each year that we could write off is $2,000 in this situation. Now this is if we use it for a whole entire year. And in bubble world, we would always buy on January 1st and use to December 31st. But in the real world, that's not how it works. We might buy a plant asset April 1st or August 1st. So we need to adjust that depreciation and can only write off for the period of time we use it. So keep that in mind. Always remember you write off or expense out for the amount of time you use the plant asset. So on the next slide, it's looking at how to figure the depreciation for part of a year. In this example, the annual depreciation expense is $900. That's the most we could write off in 1 year's time. But if we have a partial year, we have to figure out how much we can write off per month. You usually divide it by months, not days. So you take the annual depreciation expense, divide it by 12 months in a year, and you can write off $75 a month. Now we need to know how many months we have used it in that year, because we're always going to do this on December 31st. So in this case it says we've used it for 4 months. So my assumption then is that we bought it on September 1st. We use it all of September, October, November, and December. Those are the 4 months. So since we get to write it off, even for a partial year, I'm going to take my monthly depreciation expense times the number of months I used it, and I get to write off $300 of this plant asset for this year. Now the accumulative, every year I get to write off the expense, it keeps accumulating every year. So in this case, in year 2, my accumulative or total so far up to that point, depreciation is $1,200. In year 3, I got to write off an additional $900. So at the end of year 3, my accumulated depreciation is $2,100. That's how much I have written off on this plant asset up until this point. And if you reference page 592 in your book, and if you want to stop the video and pull that up, or pull it up when you're done, it's not a bad idea. On page 592, there is a nice layout of how that looks on a plant asset record. You figure it all up, you get to write out your annual depreciation, you get to write out the accumulative depreciation, and every year you figure the ending book value. When you figure that book value, you always take the original cost minus the accumulative depreciation. So at the end of every year, this accumulative number gets bigger. Our ending book value gets smaller because we're writing off more and more every year. Now at this point, you're going to go to Applia and you're going to work on 19.2 work together, where you are figuring or calculating depreciation. You'll also do the on your own piece too, and if you look at that, you'll see that they are graded, again, due tonight at 11 o'clock, so that I know you're working through these problems.